John Harbaugh won Coach of the Year. You guys ever play Madden? Connected franchise in Madden. I'm going to try to slow it down when I talk as well because I notice I talk too fast. I try to get so much information to you guys in such little time. I got to slow it down. You guys ever play Madden Connected Franchise? You guys go to the end of the year. You look at the awards. You got your MVP, you got your Rookie of the Year, you got your Defensive Rookie of the Year, you got all that stuff, right? And Madden has some cool features on there. Best linebacker, best defensive back, best edge rusher, things like that. They also have Coach of the Year as well. They always give it to the coach that has the best record. You know, when it comes to Madden, it really can't show other attributes that aren't measurable, you know, unlike the best record. You know, they have to go best record because there's no personality in a video game. There's no motivation. There's no, offensive guru and how smart they are and how they handle the team. All these things, all these different factors that you can't put in a video game that is actually in real life. They have to give it to the team with the best record in Madden, in the video game. But it seems like that's what they're doing this year. You look at, let's go back to 2014. No, I'm sorry, not 2014. 2016? That's when, yes, 2016 when Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott entered the NFL. And Jason Garrett, I believe, won Coach of the Year that year. And that was one of the most undeserving Coach of the Years I've ever seen in my life, being that he had a star running back. He was immediately a top two, even the best running back in the league in Ezekiel Elliott. I think you had Dak Prescott, who came out of nowhere and played extremely well for a rookie. No NFL defense had tape on him. It was by surprise that he was going to be starting. Tony Romo was slated to be the starter, but gets hurt in that preseason game against the Seattle Seahawks. I believe it was that game. He comes out for the year. Dak Prescott then takes over and plays extremely well. And Jason Garrett rides the coattails of those two rookies and wins Coach of the Year. How is that any different from what Josh Harbaugh has done? Josh Harbaugh, don't get me wrong, he's a far better coach than Jason Garrett. I want to make that very clear. I think John Harbaugh is one of the better coaches in the league. But leaving Kyle Shanahan's postseason, mishaps, for lack of a better term, in the postseason, leaving that aside, him choking the Super Bowl, he had one of the best regular seasons a coach could have. You look at last year, they were dealing with Nick Mullins. Jimmy Garoppolo goes down. They still find a way to have a decent record. I don't even know if they had a decent record. But they had the number 2 overall pick. They did what they can. I think they went 4-12 or something like that. They were a lot worse than they looked. But anyway, the San Francisco 49ers were terrible last year. They had the number 2 overall pick, for crying out loud, right? And I think that was because, they had the number 2 overall pick that year. And they got Nick Bosa, obviously. And Nick Bosa is a lot to do with that Super Bowl run. But Kyle Shanahan took a team that had the number 2 overall pick to one of the worst teams in the NFL. Nobody expected San Francisco to be any running for the division. A lot of people had them as a dark horse to make the playoffs, as a wild card, but nobody really had them over the Rams. Nobody really had them over the Seattle Seahawks. And they were still, everybody, they were in the same conversation as the Arizona Cardinals, and they were still putting up numbers, putting up points. They started off hot. They almost lost to Tampa Bay. I believe they blew out Cincinnati. They blew out a bunch of teams, and everybody's like, whoa, let's take San Francisco for real now. Kyle Shanahan took that team from last year that was terrible, took and took them to the Super Bowl. They had the number 1 seed in the NFL. And you're telling me that he didn't win Coach of the Year? John Harbaugh literally rode the coattails of Lamar Jackson's running ability. They got 1,200 yards. Nobody could stop Lamar Jackson. And he made it, and he got Coach of the Year? What, because Lamar Jackson could run well? I don't get it. I don't get it. This is another one of these things that I don't get. Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, should be Coach of the Year. Like I said, leave the postseason behind. This is not about the postseason. It's about the regular season. What Kyle Shanahan was able to do with that San Francisco team, The San Francisco team is stacked, don't get me wrong, but that San Francisco team is not that different. If we really look at it, is really not that different from last year. They've added Tevin Coleman. They've added who they add? D Ford, Quan Alexander. Those are pretty prominent names, but they still have the same guys like Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, Richard Sherman was still there. That was his first year there last year. You still had Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he got hurt last year. Okay. I think Tevin Coleman was hurt all of last year, if I'm not mistaken. Or that was Jerick McKinnon. Sorry, Tevin Coleman was another addition. I think I mentioned Tevin Coleman already as well. But they still had a lot of other guys out there. Emmanuel Sanders was a late add. They still had George Kittle, one of the best tight ends in the league. They had a lot of guys. And they still weren't able to put up anything. And Kyle Shanahan really brought them up this year and took them to the Super Bowl. And I know that postseason doesn't matter, but still had the San Francisco 49ers. Who the hell would have thought that San Francisco 49ers would have the number 1 seed in the NFL? Who would have thought? Not me. I was looking at the Saints. I was looking at, I know a lot of people said the Rams were overrated. I was still looking at the Rams in the beginning of the season as a possible number 1 seed. Green Bay Packers, them as well. So, that being said, it sucks, but at least Kyle Shanahan, if he won that award, at least he would have had something to go home with, right? Instead of a Lombardi Trophy, he had a Coach of the Year award. But that being said, you hate to see it. You hate to see it.